Hello, Alex here, and in this video I just want to talk for a bit about the break that I took from shooting medium format, what I learned about my own approach to photography as a result, and how playing Tears of the Kingdom led to me buying my first TLR. It's a bit weird, so let's just get into it. For the last few months in 2022 and the first 6 months of 2023, I was feeling kind of down and disenfranchised with the idea of shooting medium format at all. I was constantly feeling like with so few shots per roll, 12 with 6x6, that I was not taking pictures that I liked and that would have been good pictures in case I could get something better. Or maybe I can learn more about this film if I take XYZ instead. And I was constantly thinking about content and how to get the most out of these rolls and not take risks in case, maybe that photo is too similar to one I've already taken and oh God, I'll be seen as boring and uncreative. Not just for YouTube, but for my own sake, generally. And that's really just not healthy. It got worse in the spring of 2023 when someone said something to me that really shouldn't have gotten to me, but did. This person said, "You shouldn't be taking such bad photographs on a Hasselblad." And they didn't mean all of my pictures, but they meant that I was taking too many bad pictures. And that made me think, like, if I'm shooting medium format and I'm getting so few pictures per roll and it's costing so much to take each picture and I'm constantly worrying about if I'm taking good enough pictures and enough good pictures, why was I even doing it? At this stage, I had only shot one roll of personal film in the Hasselblad in about 3 months. I don't count the technical stuff like the Kentmere versus HP5 video. That's technical photography to me, not my photography as such. But I had an upcoming trip where I was going away with friends for a weekend, and I said I would bring the Hasselblad, shoot a bunch of film, and give myself a weekend to just go at it, go hard, just 120 or nearly exclusively 120 as it worked out, and see how I feel after the fact. And I took some wonderful pictures in Dungarvan, pictures I'm really very proud of and very happy that I took, and I'm very happy I brought that camera specifically over the other options that I had. But I still wasn't left happy overall. Take a look at this picture here. The foreground is nice and sharp and in focus, and the background just isn't in focus. I took this picture with a 50mm lens, a wide angle on 6x6 at f/22, and the whole scene isn't in focus. Why am I going to the effort and cost of having a medium format camera and feeding it film if I can't take advantage of the resolution of that larger piece of film because the scene just isn't in focus, even with a wide angle lens stopped all the way down? And I just felt, what is actually the point? Because if I shot that same shot with like a 21mm lens on a 35mm camera, cropped it square, the shorter focal length and the reduced resolution of the 35mm film would have combined to probably make that scene completely in focus. So I actually got a worse image in some respects by shooting the better format. And that just broke my perception of medium format. So I took the battery out of the Hasselblad, it's been sitting beside it for months. I put all of my 120 film away. I tidied it under the 35 and 4x5 in the drawer, and I put most of it away in the freezer because I didn't know when I would be shooting it again. For the next few months, I pretty much just shot with the Canon UF1, a little bit with the X-Pan, but mostly the Canon UF1 and the 4x5. And in my head, I had this division, this purpose for each format. For 35, it was for high volume shooting, trying weirder things, and just snapshotting, not really paying attention to what I was doing. No think only vibe, head empty kind of things. And for the 4x5, it was about precision, control, and very carefully planning out my photographs. And in my head, that clear distinction between the two was absolutely wonderful. I shot so much 4x5 this summer, and I'm so happy with all of it. I think I have about 127, it's written on the screen, I'm not going to look, 127 keepers in large format to date. 54 or 55 of those were shot this summer, plus another 8 to 10 sheets that I didn't end up scanning because I did some duplicates for some difficult compositions. That's a lot of large format. Especially, in general, it's quite a lot. For me, it's a huge amount of large format photography. I've had the camera for over 2 years at this stage, and that's about half of my total keepers in about 3 months. I even started breaking out the weirder stuff, like the No Color Studio in 4x5, number 12 Barita, the FP100C for portraits and night photography, things that I was just so worried about before. You know, what if right? I just said, screw it, I'll just break it out, have fun, take pictures, do it for me. Forget about what other people say. Even this morning, there are naysayer comments complaining about random, inane things that don't matter on other photos I've taken and other videos that I've put out. Constructive criticism is always welcome, but there are always naysayers. And I've just said, screw it. I'll take the pictures for me. I'll see how I get on with it. If things don't turn out, they don't turn out. That's the spirit of my first roll videos, and I really need to just embrace that more. Not forget about what other people think, but not worry as much about what other people think. I'm doing this for me and sharing the results online. I'm not doing it to put the results online. And then I got The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. I loved Breath of the Wild. I replayed it at the start of this year in anticipation of Tears of the Kingdom, and I bought my Switch on launch day specifically for Breath of the Wild. I love the Zelda franchise in general, but these two games photographically appeal to me more because they have an in-game camera and a compendium, a bestiary for tracking the different creatures and items, weapons, flora within the game world in Hyrule. It was only when I was refilling the compendium, you know, playing a new game with Tears of the Kingdom, and then I offloaded a bunch of screenshots to my computer that I realized that I knew, but only really appreciated that the in-game camera is a square format camera. You can take full screen screenshots, but the overlay when you're taking the pictures and adding things to the compendium is square format. And I have been practicing square format compositions like a 6x6 camera while playing video games. And as silly as it is, I suddenly wanted to shoot medium format again. And okay, how do I get back into medium format while still having a distinct purpose for it? So I have a 35mm SLR, I have a 35mm rangefinder, I have the 4x5, I have my different approaches to how I use them. I've spoken before a few times about how I suffer really badly with choice paralysis, so keeping my cameras as distinct and separate with different purposes as I can really helps me in that regard. You know, if I want to shoot, again, high quality and precisely, I have the 4x5. If I want to shoot panoramas, I've got the X-Pan. If I want to do macro photography, I use the Canon most of the time, just because it's easier than using the 4x5. What do I do with 120 that's different then? So I don't want just like a Pentax 6.7. I had one, sold it. It's basically just a giant 35mm SLR. So in my head, knowing my own limitations, I would struggle to choose, do I go for the bigger, higher resolution Pentax, or do I just go for the Canon, which is lighter and smaller? That kind of thing. What I opted for was to stick with the waist level finder in a different way, and I bought a Yashica Mat 124G. It's a TLR. Twin lens reflex. It's still a waist level finder experience like with the Hasselblad, but using this thing after borrowing one from a friend has been such a complete game changer for me. And it shouldn't be, right? I mean, it's just a TLR. But going around and taking portraits of people, which is something I've been pushing myself to do a lot in the last few months, has been so much easier with this than any other camera. And it's kind of rekindled and revitalized that for me because people are so amenable to it. Everybody, regardless of age, seems to recognize this is an old-timey camera. Whereas you break out a Pentax 645 and it might as well be a modern digital camera to most people. This thing kind of disarms people and it makes them much more agreeable to having their portrait taken, which is something I've been really enjoying doing. People say it online and in books. It's the idea that if you're not behind the camera, you're looking down into the camera, you're not hiding from people, and that makes them feel a lot more comfortable. And I never really believed that, but I do find that people are more amenable to having their portrait taken with the TLR than with the Hasselblad. Whatever psychological thing it is, it's true and it's a real thing. So in my brain, that's a niche that's been carved out. I can get more intimate with the subject, speak to them, approach them, get to know them a little bit for a brief time, and take their portrait. And there's nothing more different than a wide open panoramic X-Pan shot, which is the more extreme, than getting up and personal with a square format picture of one subject. And that's how it's kind of carved its way into my mind. I know how stupid it is that, playing a video game has rekindled my interest in a certain type of photography, but honestly it has, and it's just the way things have lined up and multiple things have converged to kind of help me accept that yes, even if I am making videos and putting so many photos online, I can just take pictures that I want and I can just share them and then people can deal with that. Whether they like them or not, that's up to the viewer of the picture. It's not my duty to take pictures that people will like, because there will always be people who don't like them. That's life. I'll take what I want to take, and if I like the pictures, I do, and if they come out bad, I'll just live with and accept that. So what is medium format to me now, and where am I going to go with it? I think I'm going to go in two different but kind of similar directions. The first is what I've already said, the square format being as different from a panorama as you can get, and being more intimate with subjects and scenes, and just learning to frame things more comfortably in a square format. I think the TLR will be good for that, and it's easy to bring everywhere because it's so light. The other side will be to find a kind of diet 4x5, something that will let me control my depth of field so I can always get the most out of the 120 film when I want to, or play with depth of field for creative effects. There is a camera I've been looking for about 15 months that can do this, and one recently popped up in local classifieds for a really good price, so I'm gonna go and see that soon. I'll talk more about that in the future if that comes to pass. So what do you use your different gear for? I'm curious to hear from other people, whether it's in the comments down below, on Discord, in the Ireland Analog group. Why do you own the different cameras that you do? What do they do for you? Do any of you think about your gear in such a segregated and overly analytical way like me, or am I more abnormal than I think I am in my approach to how I purchase and use my gear? Thanks for listening to me ramble. This is something I've wanted to kind of get off my chest and tell people who aren't just Mark, Kieran and Brendan. Thank you, the three of you, for listening to me on and on about this subject and for helping me suss it out. For the rest of you, stay safe and bye-bye for now. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at shaka1277 for new pictures every day. If you liked this video and enjoy what I do on the channel, please consider subscribing or checking out my Patreon, where the tiers start at just €1 per month.